Congressman Mark Pocan on the line with us, taking your calls for the hour. We have calls from Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New Mexico, California, Florida, Michigan, and Arizona, and we've only got 9 minutes. So I'm asking my callers to keep it short. Michael, one question for the congressman in Waterville, Ohio. Hey, Michael, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Congressman. I know you're a strong supporter of the move to amend amendment to eliminate corporate constitutional rights and money as speech. Given the fact that this is probably going to be, if not already, the most pro-corporate administration we've ever seen, do you believe this is a stronger time for an effort to get a grassroots commitment to amend the Constitution, and for the 20 people in Congress who have co-sponsored this bill to speak about this and encourage participation in the effort to get corporations out of our Constitution and money away from speech?
Yeah, Michael, absolutely. I'm very bullish on what Move to Amend is doing around the country because, I think it's going to have to happen from the grassroots, right? We're going to need to say that corporations are not people and money is not free speech, and that's exactly what the constitutional amendment does that's been introduced. I saw Russ Feingold from Wisconsin, a former U.S. Senator, just launched a new group, I think today, that's going to be taking on this and other issues as well. But we really need to build this from the grassroots. Every community that I know of across Wisconsin and the country that's put this on the ballot has won overwhelmingly in their areas. And I think that's how we're going to fight back and defeat this big money involved in trying to destroy our democracy.
Jerry in Meshoppin, Pennsylvania, if I'm saying that right. Jerry, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, I'm calling about the increase in the military spending budget. We don't even pay our military a living wage. They depend on WIC and food stamps, and it's an appalling situation for our military to see this going on. So what next? Reinstate the draft when we have someone sitting in the White House, and I won't use the P name on him, because he was too much of a coward to serve this country during Vietnam. So we need to take care of our military from the ground up. They don't even make a living wage. It's appalling. And yet we want more ammo.
Yeah, Jerry, I couldn't agree more. In fact, Keith Ellison this week, while we were at a Progressive Caucus meeting, his son is in the military, making $22,000 a year. Clearly, the money that's going into defense isn't going to the military personnel. At $22,000, you're not getting by. And yet these large contractors are the ones that are trying to push these big increases in defense spending so that, the wealthiest, again, are going to see all that money. So your point is extremely poignant, and we need to do more to share that that money is not going to the people who are defending us. It's going to a lot of big defense contractors.
Larry in Martinsburg, West Virginia, listening on Sirius XM. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yeah, thank you. Congressman, it looks as though Judge Gorsuch will get a seat on the Supreme Court. And given that, should it be proven that Donald Trump conspired or colluded with the Russians to win the election, should he be impeached? And if he's impeached, ethically, shouldn't Judge Gorsuch then resign his seat on the Supreme Court?
Well, and that's part of, I think, the case that Chuck Schumer is making right now, Larry, is that why would we go forward until we have this other part resolved? And, I think he makes a really strong case that Tom and I were talking about earlier. I mean, I think that you could argue, since there is this pretty big question and you're under investigation by the FBI, we shouldn't move forward with someone that's going to be there for a lifetime. And I hope that the Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer and others, will live up to this and really hold them to not try to approve something as long as there's an investigation going on.
Kevin in Santa Fe, New Mexico, listening on KTRC. You're on with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you for talking with Congressman Pocan, and I'd like to know if it can be tied in with the Russian investigation, whether or not Chris Kobach in his election fraud that we suspect was assisted by the Russian hackers who, it's now coming out, were known to have hacked into election systems within different counties and states inside of the United States. Because I know it's very hard to get that investigated, but it's at the crux of the things, and thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for your question and comments. Let me answer it this way if I can. We just introduced, Keith Ellison, Hank Johnson, and myself, the SAFE Act at the end of last week, since the last time I was on Thom Hartmann, which is doing things like trying to put our elections into the critical infrastructure that we put utilities and other companies to try to safeguard against hacking. We want to make sure that every voting machine has a paper ballot, and we want to make sure that there's a random amount of audits to make sure that, again, the Russians are going to do everything possible they can to continue interfering with elections because they got away with it and they got what they wanted. And we have to do everything we can to safeguard those. So that's one part of it. The second part is, I've listened to a lot of folks on this program talk about the interstate crosscheck. And one of the things we're looking at doing right now is trying to figure out how we can maybe try to put a stop to it with some federal legislation, perhaps requiring something like you absolutely have to use a middle name and a social security number before you can drop someone. So we're going to be looking for feedback. We're in developing this right now, but I really appreciate your question because on multiple fronts, our democracy is only as good as if everyone has that ability to vote equally. The Koch brothers and my brother and I, that's the one thing we have in common. And when you lose that, whether it be from an outside interference in elections or because people are artificially dropping people off and you can't vote, that's going to be a threat to our democracy.
Josepha in Gurneville, California, if I'm saying it right.
Hi,
Josepha, you're on the air.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I had a question and was wondering if the Democrats could ask Gorsuch if let's say he was approved to go onto the Supreme Court, if he was hearing a case about Donald Trump and his impeachment and or other crimes, would he recuse himself? I mean, I think he should not be allowed on the Supreme Court, but let's say he got there. I'm curious what he would say about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, these are all questions I know they're asking right now, and hopefully they're going to be very aggressive in this because I think that, one, the tone has been set that, maybe they shouldn't proceed until we get this FBI investigation out of the way, and I think that's the right approach. But secondly, ask extremely tough questions because, they held up an appointment for this fake reason of the last year of administration, someone who was a Republican that was being appointed by Barack Obama, and now they want to have Steve Bannon and Donald Trump picking, people, and we're supposed to now suddenly believe that we're slowing the process down. I mean, there's legitimate reasons and legitimate questions that should be asked. So I hope the Senate is as aggressive as possible in slowing this down and getting the answers we need before we proceed and put someone in a lifetime position.
Paul in Edgewater, Florida. You're on with Congressman Pocan.
Hello, Tom. Hello, Congressman. I recently saw a meme on Facebook that talked about presidents stealing trillions of dollars from Social Security. And when I was trying to research that topic, I came across an article that said something along the lines that there's some sort of law that requires a president or an administration to basically seize and utilize allegedly excess funds in the Social Security system for the general use of the country. I was wondering if you could expound on that a little bit. I didn't quite understand what they were talking about.
Seems to me like none of that is true. Congressman?
Yeah, Paul, I have not seen that. Nothing rings especially clear that I've heard this before, so I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you, but if you've got an article and you can forward it to Tom and myself, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, this is the kind of right-wing stuff that, the friends of Pete Peterson have been peddling forever. They just want to privatize Social Security so they can take that money to Wall Street. Josephine in Detroit, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, thank you.
We have just 1 minute left in the hour.
Okay, I just wanted to find out why did the Democrats go along with having a hearing for Gorsuch when they could have waited? They could have postponed it. I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, we don't put the agenda together so they can, the Republicans kind of set that tone. And again, it goes back to my comment about elections have consequences. So, I think what they're doing now is they're fighting very hard to try to make sure this doesn't proceed. And but we know that they've got a lot of leverage being in the majority in the Senate. So I'm hoping that Chuck Schumer will do everything he can in his power. But it's not like there's an acquiescence on this. I think there's a resistance put together by Senate Democrats. It's just when you don't have the majority, there's certain things that are out of your control.
Do you know if there was any debate in the Senate among Democrats about whether they should even show up for the hearings?
I don't know that offhand. We often have those debates on things, and I think one of the challenges on that is if you can't ask questions and get some points out there, you've kind of given up that part of the media to be able to
right.
try to get some concerns out. And so it's always a tough battle that we have in deciding. But I think being there to ask the tough questions is important.
Yeah, amen. Congressman Pocan, thanks so much for being with us this hour.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Great talking with you. Thank you so much.